Every 3 years, Australia will hold a general election to select new members of the House of Representatives and some of the members for the Senate, which is the upper house of the parliament. And the election will be held every 3 years, which is the shortest of any duration of democratic countries in the world. But it is not about the election process what I want to talk about Australia. I would like to talk about something called democracy sausage. Democracy sausage is kind of a food, of course it's a food, a sausage slapped on a white bread together with ketchup, mustard and caramelized onion. It is such a simple dish but can be messed up in quite a number of ways, which as I will explain later on. It is kind of an Aussie tradition to have a democracy sausage right after voting in a general election, which is kind of a quite an interesting tradition, by the way. Of course, you are hungry after lining up quite so long in the voting station and want to eat something after that, after releasing some what in your mind. And what known today is a democracy sausage, it doesn't appear in a thin air. Actually, it comes from what happened in the late 19th century and the 20th century Australia, which later on from selling cakes and selling jams and crafts and later evolved into something familiar with the Australian cuisine, which is a sausage. And what does other countries can learn from the democracy sausage and also the democracy process of Australia? And started up with the ingredients. The ingredients for the democracy sausage are sausages, white bread, ketchup, mustard and also caramelized onion, and also something that you can put up top, maybe some salad or such. And the most common variation of the democracy sausage is simply like sausage on white bread. That's it. And even though the ingredient is so simple, it is such a thing, is such a debate, it will be such an outrageous thing if the method or the preparation way will be like being questioned. One, in the year 2018, when there was an ASEAN summit in Singapore, the Prime Minister at that time was asked by the Australian reporters and journalists what are his thoughts about the heated debate back home. It was not about the climate, it was not about fire, it was not about drought, but it was about the caramelized onion position. After Bunnings, one of the big companies in Australia, has suggested that instead of putting onion on top of the sausage, let's put it below so that the onion doesn't fall off to the floor and someone will walk and slip down. Actually, it will be a serious thing because it will be jeopardizing the white bread itself. The caramelized onion can soften the bread, which in the end makes it will not taste it at all. But just simply put caramelized onion on top, by the way. Simple as that. Even with the simple ingredients can be like jeopardizing the integrity or the originality of the democracy sausage by year after year, since Australian society has been increasingly diverse with ethnicity, with religion and also some societal background, and more varieties were introduced without jeopardizing any of the original ingredients at all. For example, there is a veggie sausages made up of soybeans. There are also halal sausages, which I really want to try. And also there are, if you don't have appetite for sausages, there are also still coffee and cakes. The history of democracy sausage is as vague as its ingredients inside the sausage itself, because you don't know what is put inside, whether it's a beef or pork or whatever fillings inside. In the late 19th century and also the early 20th century, Australia is not a united federation yet. It is actually a collection of British colonies, with its own states functioning on itself. Like for example, New South Wales is different from Queensland, it's different from Western Australia, and it is also different from Victoria, which are often quarreling with each other. Giving up food and giving up some goodies during the election day was a common things happen during the election day, and actually it's not only happened in Australia in the 19th century, it's actually still happened in most part of the world, including where I'm living here right now. People are giving out food and some goodies before and after the election happened. It's such a common thing. In the year 1843, there was a riot, post-election riot in Sydney, New South Wales, which ended up with 2 casualties and also a lot more injured. And such election day is really a violent day because every groups want to have like their own gatherings and also start to fighting with another group, opposition parties. And after Australia start to form a federation, especially after the formation of the federal government in the year 1901, that all the things start to be ordered up. And in the year 1920 or 30 something, that the tradition of bribing the voters to give the food, especially usually alcohol, start to be banned in the election in the voting stations throughout the country. And such, to replace all the missing food from the stations, such people start to switch over to selling the food instead, especially the women's association, to raise up the funding. And adding up with the policy, adding up with the law, Australian law since 1924, that every citizen need to vote compulsorily. If you don't go out to vote, you need to pay a fine at that. And such, the turnout for every election is really high. It is a good opportunity for the non-government organization to raise some funds for their cause and actions, and especially in the place where the voting happens itself. Voting station often in schools, often in churches, in community halls, and these places need a lot of money to operate. And at the beginning, there was no sausage. It was mainly cakes and jams and crafts, because a lot of them were made by the women association, and men tend to make at that time sticks, and stick often took a lot of time. Maybe the voting process took about 10 or 15 minutes to finish, but you willing to wait about 2 hours for a stick to done? And everyone have their own favorable way of cooking, having their own steak, rare, medium rare, well done, congratulations, all that levels and such. So the cakes are the easiest things to serve. In the beginning, sausages were not a choice for most ordinary Australian, because it's always associated with poverty, war, especially sausages were not sanctioned during World War II, but the supply of meat, prime cuts were sanctioned and being limited to the general consumption. And people also have a suspicious thing whether what the ingredients inside the sausage itself is fully beef or mixed with pork or other things that people do not know. Such, the sausages often being marginalized in the mainstream cuisine. But that situation changed in about the year about the in middle of the 20th century. Their first reference of the election sizzling started in the year 1946, according to Jacqueline Kennelly, based on the interview from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, ABC News, in the year I shared the based on this interview in the previous election in the year 2019. And with the advance of technology, especially portable grills and also gas stoves, which makes cooking much more lighter and easier compared with the wooden charcoal method of cooking, and adding up with the inflation and high cost of living in the around late 60s, especially in the early 70s during the world oil crisis, and price of everything start to shoot up. At least sausages still affordable to most of people, as such that how the sausages start to gain its popularity, especially on the election days. And the term democracy sausage did not appear in the mass media until the year 2010, in the infancy of the social media thing. Social media micro, at that time it's called microblogging, which the term that people don't use anymore. Most people see it's a social media. Or at that time on Twitter, people start to post it about something called democracy sausages, which are sausages that slap on the white bread, a kind of a tradition like long time before. And we realized at the time it was a tradition for most of the Australian voters to have their own democracy sausages after voting in the voting station, and people start to share the photos and stories of their getting the election sausages. And in fact, someone is considered already voting if they already get the picture of them holding up the sausages with the white bread, like the things that like in the United States of America you get the I voted sticker put on your shirt, or in Malaysia you have a indelible ink on your finger. That's how the Australians show that he or she or them, they already voted at that day. Together with the advanced technology again, after the term of democracy sausages start to gain the mainstream attention, and it start to spread over, especially in the online world. In the year 2013, there is a one website called democracysausages.org, which still can be accessible today. In fact, last week is really active, really posted where the position of the democracy sausage were offered in, because quite a number of the voting stations did not offer a food at all, and only a few being allowed to sell in the premises. And the democracy sausages.org was started by Annette Tyler when she want to know which voting station offered the democracy sausages, and also other food offered, for example like coffee and cakes, like tradition, like the usual stuff. And what started only in the Western Australia in 2013 eventually spread over to the whole country, where people can see whether the local voting station have offer democracy sausages or else. And together with the creativity of the population, and also with the advent of social media, which people can share all the wacky things inside the virtual world, the names of the food offered instead of the boring sausages, boring coffee or cakes, such, people start to play with the names, especially with the names of the politicians, the candidates, and also the current policy, the government policy, or even the things that people start to gain concerned about. For example, the list of the menu offer from Camden Primary School in New South Wales really hit you, especially the last one. This menu is from 2019, and this is this year's menu 2022, the current election, and the menu is different. Of course, the last menu is inedible, but they raised the school opened up the democracy sausages stall for that purpose, even if you want to interested to buy that thing. But the thing is not yours, but it's for everyone to be used for the public benefit, for the kids. In conclusion, democracy sausages is a food that appeals to all social walk of life, social status, and its diversity also appeal to everyone, which has some kind of a special diet, for example. And the basic ingredients used in the democracy sausages means that it can be enjoyed by almost everyone. A bit some heated debate whether you still need to put onion below the sausage on the top of white bread, make it soggy, or I don't like that one. how people can think that to put a wet caramelized onion on the below of the sausages, heated it up, and it becomes, just put it on top. The variety of democracy sausages offered, such as a veggie version, vegan version, halal version, reflect the diversity of Australian society, which increasingly accepted a number of people coming from all over the world staying there, which actually far cry from what Australia used to be about a century ago, where in the 19th and 20th century, all the bribe and alcohol and fighting things, only the land owning white man can vote at the time. But today, everyone can vote. That's, and everyone should enjoy sausages as well.